So what do we have a boiling pot of water on the stove for today? Well, I'll give you one guess. Didn't guess? No? Okay. We're going to make brownies today. And the first thing I'm going to do is lower the heat just a bit because we want to keep this on a very low simmer while we melt 4 tablespoons of butter. Butter, yes, butter. I'm going to use butter. And a whopping 10 ounces of unsweetened carob chips. Nope, these are not chocolate chips. These are carob chips. I like to make brownies with carob instead of chocolate for a variety of reasons. One, because there's no caffeine. And 2, because I kind of like the flavor. Okay, so this is more than a low simmer. It's a pretty high simmer. But our object is to melt this butter so that we can mix the carob in and smooth it out, and then we'll have a nice, wonderful carob butter mixture. Normally, this particular recipe for brownies, and a pretty classical recipe for brownies, takes a whole stick of butter, 8 tablespoons. But this time, what we're going to do is cut the fat by 50% by substituting white beans. And we're not just going to put beans in there. What I'm going to do is puree the white beans. I'm going to use my wonderful stick blender. And while this is melting, I'm going to puree those white beans. Okay, so the white beans are now pureed, and I've added the carob chips to the melted butter, and it's going to take me a while until these melt down and smooth out. They don't work the same way that chocolate does. It's just not the same thing. So if you decide to cook with carob, you need to tell your friends that it's not the same thing. Don't expect something that's going to taste like chocolate, because it just doesn't. It doesn't taste the same. It tastes different. And it has a different texture. It melts a little differently. Generally, it just behaves a little differently. But it's smoothing out. See? You can see the texture changing and becoming smoother, and that's great. Right now I am whisking the warm carob and butter mixture just to cool it off a little bit and to help smooth it out. And now I'm going to turn it on a slow speed, and I'm going to add a cup and a half of agave nectar. And you may think, well, that's an awful lot of agave nectar, and you'd be right. However, we're using unsweetened carob here. Let me turn up the speed. So we're going to get a nice smooth mixture. We're just going to keep whisking until it's completely combined. And now I'm going to add that, the bean. Actually, I'll slow it down a little bit. And make sure that's well combined. Whisk that in there. And I noticed that I have a little bit of agave nectar left, so I'm going to scrape that in there. And then next, I'm going to add the eggs in one at a time, and that's 4 eggs. It's a lot of eggs, but it'll add lift and richness and yet even more protein to this recipe. Okay, so I'm going to turn the camera off for a minute while I continue whipping this up, adding more air and mixing it thoroughly, and then adding the eggs. So the combination of all the wet ingredients is very well blended, and now we're at the point where I'm going to add the dry ingredients. And right now I am combining the 1/4 cup of coconut flour with 1/2 cup of whole wheat pastry flour and you can tell there's a little color difference here, and that is because I'm adding some spices. Adding a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg and a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and that's going to lend a really nice spicy flavor to these brownies and bring out some of that great carob flavor. So now what I'm going to do is fold in this dry mixture. I need something to put this in. I'll just put it in where I'm putting the rest of the things. Put that away so we don't have to look at it. And we're going to take it off. I need one of these, a rubber spatula. Okay. So what do we mean when we say fold in? Well, I'm going to take a little bit at a time and incorporate it a little bit, just to get the dryness off of it, and add a bit more. Actually, I'll just add the rest because it's not a heck of a lot of flour. It's a very wet dough, a very wet batter, and by using the coconut flour is going to absorb a lot of the moisture that we have in the agave nectar. Okay, so see, it's coming about. And the last thing I'm going to do, even before I have this completely folded in, because I'm going to do a little bit more folding, is I'm going to add some pecans. Because I like nuts in my brownies. Not everybody does, but I do. So I'm going to add about 1/3 cup of pecans to the brownies. And we'll do our final folding. And make sure that all the dry ingredients are well incorporated. And when I'm done with this, I'm going to pour it into a buttered pan. I'm actually using a nonstick pan, but the recipe calls for a buttered 8-inch pan. So we're going to use one of those. And I will bake it at 325 degrees for about 35 minutes or so. Okay. We'll see you when these come out of the oven. I've done a bit of a hack job on the brownies, not very good at all. I used a non-stick spatula to do it, but I couldn't wait. So here's my big piece, and I'm going to give it a shot right now. Oh my God, that's really good. It's very rich tasting, and it's sort of a combination of cakey and fudgy brownie, and the nuts are delightful, and there's absolutely no bean flavor at all. It's just really nice, rich, flavorful brownie. Really good.